All right, welcome. Today we're diving into the world of Indian ethics. But listen, this isn't going to be some dry list of do's and don'ts. This is a journey into a philosophy built around one single massive idea that we are all caught in a cosmic loop. And ethics, in this way of thinking, is the key to finally breaking free. So let's just start with the biggest question there is, right? Most ethical systems out there are trying to figure out how we can all just get along. But Indian philosophy starts way, way deeper. It asks, what is the whole point of all this? And the answer it comes up with is what makes this entire framework so incredibly unique. See, in this worldview, the central problem of being human isn't just that people sometimes do bad things. It's that we're stuck in a cosmic cycle, like a record skipping over and over. So the whole purpose of being ethical isn't just to, rack up brownie points for being a good person. It's to figure out how to stop the record and get out of the loop for good. Okay, so to really understand the solution, we first have to get our heads around the problem. So let's explore the two big ideas that really act as the engine of the universe in Indian thought: karma and samsara. First up, karma. Now, a lot of people mistake this for fate, but it's really more like a law of moral physics. Every single action creates a ripple, but here's the absolute key. It's all about intention. Think about it. If you accidentally knock over a glass of water, that's one thing. But if you smash it on the floor in a fit of rage, well, the intention behind that action creates a much, much heavier karmic weight. Our entire present reality is literally being shaped by the momentum of our past choices. And that leads us right to samsara. If karma is the law, samsara is the playing field. It's that endless looping cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. The soul, weighed down by all of its accumulated karmic baggage, is just born again and again and again. And this is not seen as a good thing. This is the fundamental trap we're all trying to escape. So you see where this is going. Ethics becomes this incredibly practical tool. It's the instruction manual for how to live in a way that doesn't just get you a slightly better next life, but actually gets you off the cosmic Ferris wheel for good. This ultimate escape has a name. It's called moksha, or liberation. So if we're on a quest to break this cycle, we're going to need a map, right? And in Indian thought, that map is called Dharma. Let's take a look at how it guides our actions. Dharma is such a rich and powerful concept. The root word literally means to hold together, and that's precisely what it does. It's the cosmic law, that sense of personal duty, and the righteous conduct that keeps the universe, society, and even our own inner selves from falling into chaos. But here's the thing, Dharma is not a one-size-fits-all deal. It's usually broken down into two key ideas. On one hand, you have sadharana dharma. Think of these as the universal virtues that apply to every single person, stuff like honesty and compassion. But then you have svadharma, and this is your unique personal duty, the right path specifically for you, based on your own nature and your place in the world. So what are these universal virtues? Well, the ancient lawgiver Manu listed a bunch of them, and you'll probably recognize a lot of them. Truthfulness, self-control, not stealing. These are the absolute bedrock principles, the foundation of a moral life for anyone, anywhere on the planet. But, and this is a really important but, that concept of svadharma, of personal duty, gets really complicated. Because while the idea was that it's based on an individual's unique qualities, our sources show that in practice, it got tangled up with a rigid, hierarchical caste system that was determined by birth. And this, of course, created deep social inequalities, a tension that is still a really critical and controversial issue within Hindu ethics today. So what happens when these different kinds of duties collide? This is where it gets really, really interesting. The most famous exploration of this whole problem comes from the Bhagavad Gita, which basically gives us one of the greatest ethical thought experiments in all of human history. So here's the dilemma. You have the warrior Arjuna, and he's on the battlefield. His svadharma, his personal duty as a warrior, demands that he fight for a just cause. But his sadharana dharma, that universal duty, tells him that killing is wrong, especially when the people on the other side are his own family, his friends, his teachers. He is completely paralyzed. I mean, what do you do? And the Gita's response to Arjuna's crisis is one of the most famous lines in all of philosophy. It offers this profound way out of the paradox by shifting the focus entirely. The problem isn't the action itself, it's our attachment to what happens next. This is the concept of nishkama karma, or you might call it disinterested action. The solution for Arjuna is to do his duty. He has to fight, but to do it without any attachment to the results. He has to act without craving victory or fearing defeat. It's about finding a state of pure action, almost what we might call a flow state today, where you're so immersed in your duty that your ego and the outcome just fade away. By detaching from the fruits of the action itself is purified, and it no longer creates that binding karma. Now, beyond just how to act, the tradition also gives us this really holistic blueprint for what a meaningful life looks like. It's known as the Purusharthas, or the four main goals of life. And this isn't just a list. There's a real hierarchy here. The framework totally acknowledges that worldly things like pleasure, that's kama, and wealth or security, that's artha, are perfectly valid and necessary parts of being human. But they have to be guided and contained by dharma, by righteousness. And ultimately, all three of those are aimed at achieving the final highest goal, moksha, liberation from that cycle of samsara. Now, the Hindu tradition wasn't the only one in India grappling with this whole problem of liberation. So let's broaden our view for a minute and look at two other major paths that grew out of the same philosophical soil, but each offered a very distinct map to that same ultimate destination: Jainism and Buddhism. So while all three traditions are trying to get out of the same loop, their methods have a different focus. Hinduism, like we saw in the Gita, really emphasizes selfless action. Jainism, on the other hand, elevates radical nonviolence, or ahimsa, as its absolute highest principle, believing that every single living thing has a soul, and causing any harm creates heavy karma. And then Buddhism really zeroes in on the power of mindful intention, arguing that it's the mental state behind the action that truly forges our karmic path. For regular lay Buddhists, this focus on intention is put into practice through what's called the 5 precepts. But these are not commandments from on high. They're voluntary training rules that a person chooses to take on to help purify their own mind. The goal here is to develop mindfulness and starve the roots of suffering, which are greed, hatred, and delusion. So by choosing to refrain from these actions, you're training your own mind to act with wholesome intentions, which creates the causes for liberation, not more entanglement. All right, so after this whirlwind tour through a massive philosophical landscape, what's the big takeaway? How does this all come together? I think if there's one thing to really hold on to, it's this. In these traditions, morality isn't just a social contract to keep things from going off the rails. It is the very path of spiritual transformation itself. Your daily ethical choices, the small things and the big things, become the very tools you use to purify your mind, to break the bonds of karma, and to achieve the ultimate purpose of existence. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? If we reframe our own life, not as just a series of random events, but as a genuine quest for something meaningful, what does our own personal moral map, our Dharma, what is it telling us our very next step should be? Something to ponder. Thanks for watching.